back here at the Los Angeles premiere of Waiting for Superman. This is Davis Guggenheim's new documentary which highlights some of the problems and struggles facing the public school system in America.
Well, when I started Participant Media 6 years ago, my goal was to tell stories that would get people involved in the big issues that affect us all. And Participant has now done 28 films in the last 6 years, all of which deal with major issues in the world. Climate change, homelessness, Afghanistan, Darfur. And a few years ago we were thinking about what are the biggest issues that affect Americans. And as we really put our heads together, we realized education was the single biggest domestic policy issue that affects us all in terms of crime and poverty and domestic violence and so on. And it's a system in crisis. So we decided to start a film, which we're releasing, as you know, in the next couple of days, called Waiting for Superman, and we're very excited about it.
Actually, Participant, the same company that did An Inconvenient Truth, that funded An Inconvenient Truth, called us and said, what do you think about tackling this issue? To which Davis said, I don't know, that's very complicated, which I agreed. But he went away and thought about it, and I went away and thought about it. I used to teach in Japan a long time ago, and I noticed culturally the difference in the kind of respect that teachers got, and I always thought that was an interesting phenomenon. So we put together a treatment after a couple of months and decided that we could tackle it. And I have to tell you, even though it's a very, very complicated issue, it's here in the U.S. that we need to tackle and fix, and it's not as complicated as global warming. We know what works. We have the solutions. It doesn't require international cooperation. We just need to take the things that are working and implement them everywhere.
Who is this Superman? What sort of form is Superman going to come in?
Well, I can't tell you. I'd be giving away the movie. You know better than that. I would never do that. But I think people in your school, those are the ones who did really well. Those are the ones the system served. But I think people who go to your school might think, I've got a cousin or a brother or a sister that didn't make it, and I see what happens to them. In America, the idea of great education for the few is not right. It's not right, and it's bad for our country. So I think it's up to the people like us. I went to a good college. I went to a good school. It's up to people like us to demand a great school for every kid in America, not just a few.
Can you tell us a little bit about the mission of your organization?
Yes, our organization works with all of the children in a 97-block area. We start with children from birth and we stay with them until they graduate from college. And we think you have to create a comprehensive strategy in some communities where children have failed that involves education and healthcare and social services so that these young people really can get a level playing field.
And how do you work with their families?
Well, we start very early with families. It's something we call baby college, which is for the parents of children 0 to 3, where we teach them what we really know about brain development. And the idea is to make sure these young people who are having kids know what the science says. And then we really stay with our parents straight through from the early childhood into elementary, middle school, and high school, supporting them in all kinds of ways. And sometimes it's helping them with their child, and sometimes it's helping them with their own problems, because many of our families have their own issues they're dealing with.
We need a partnership with parents and teachers that says we're willing to set high standards, to support metrics-driven reform. We need to acknowledge that when schools are failing, they ought to be closed down. When schools are successful, they ought to be acknowledged and awarded. We've got to provide incentives to public education to do just that.
Thank you so much.
Cool. When you go to Boyle Heights in LA, really tough neighborhood, you don't know what you're going to find. I mean, it's a really tough neighborhood. You knock on the door and it's like, who's going to answer the door? And when you meet Daisy's family, her father drives a truck, her mom cleans hospital rooms. They're just like me and my wife. They just want a great education for their kids. They have big dreams for their kids, just like my wife and I.
One of the most interesting things that I learned in the course of making this film was that it's only been recently that we've actually figured out what works. Up until the last few years, we didn't realize where our scores were relative to other countries. We didn't realize how our schools were performing relative to one another. And what we found is that there are certain schools, whether they're public schools or charter schools, that are really outperforming, and they all seem to have in common these factors of great teachers that are fairly evaluated with longer school days and the tools to really make it work. And so what's very exciting is that we think that the system is fixable.
Well, we had up into the 70s, we had some of the best schools in the country. Up into the 70s, we had some of the best schools in the world. But we just sort of stayed the same, and all the other countries got better. But we were only, schools were only built to educate a few people, like the top 5%, the top 10%. But now we need to educate everybody.
Thank you very much.
Go to our website, waitingforsuperman.com. Thank you very much.